Also urged a second stimulus package, especially focusing on the problems that state governments are going through, because obviously as real estate has collapsed, the value of real estate throughout the country has collapsed. That means that property taxes, which are a huge portion of local state revenues, have also collapsed, and this is going to be a problem for years to come in terms of states being able to balance their budgets.
That's exactly right. And the important point is that the states have what I call balanced budget framework. That means that the revenues are going down, and they're going down by over $200 billion a year. As the revenues go down, they either have to cut back spending or raise taxes. This is a negative stimulus to the economy. So the stimulus at the federal level is being offset by the negative stimulus at the state level. Same problem happened in the Great Depression. One of the reasons the Great Depression lasted as long as it did was that as the New Deal kicked in, the stakes were contracting. And the result of it was that we didn't really recover for years from the Great Depression.
We're talking to Joe Stiglitz, Nobel Prize-winning economist. His new book is called Freefall. You know, in our headlines, we just read that Ivo de Boer, the head of the climate change talks in Copenhagen, is quitting, is resigning. He won't be there for the Mexico City talks. You've been very involved with the issue of climate change. Talk about what needs to be done and what you feel isn't being done by this country.
Well, let me first try to give a link between climate change and the economic recovery. What is so disturbing about our current global economic situation is that we have this enormous excess capacity, and we have these unmet needs. Unmet needs that we have to retrofit the global economy to meet the challenges of global warming. We have a couple billion people living in dire poverty around the world. We need to have investment to increase their standards of living. So we have this incongruity of excess supply and unmet needs, and our economy and our political leaders can't seem to bring the two together. In Copenhagen, if we had succeeded in raising the price of carbon, the cost of carbon of emissions that pollute the atmosphere are going to impose enormous costs all over the world. If we had succeeded in doing that, that would have provided a market signal. It would have told firms, you have to invest to reduce your carbon emissions. There would have been this retrofitting of the global economy to meet the needs of global warming. That would have stimulated an enormous level of investment, stimulated a lot of spending, and that would have been the critical thing that could have gotten us out of the current Great Recession. But as it is, what we did is left even greater uncertainty. Where are we going? And the result of that is that greater hesitancy even to make the kinds of investments that we were in the process of making. So in fact, the failure in Copenhagen has its economic consequences right now.
In your book also, in terms of dealing with or analyzing the current crisis, you try to make the point that really this crisis was not the result of decisions of any few individuals, but you say precisely this book has a different aim. Its view is that essentially all critical policies, such as those related to deregulation, were the consequence of political and economic forces, interests, ideas, and ideologies that go beyond any particular individual. If these forces resulted in the current crisis, what kind of policies are you proposing that would get us out of the crisis?
Well, the point is that, a lot of attention has been focused on, say, Alan Greenspan and Bernanke for the failures of regulation that led to the crisis. And what I was trying to do here is to say, if Greenspan hadn't been there, there'd been somebody else. Reagan would have appointed another person who believes that regulation isn't needed. And if you have regulators who don't believe in regulation, you're not going to get effective enforcement of regulation. Right now, we're seeing some of that, the same mixture of ideology, interest, that are stopping us from restructuring the regulatory framework. So you see the outpouring of money trying to persuade Congress not to adopt the regulations that are obviously needed. We should have learned from this experience, but so far, very little regulatory reform has been done. They use these arguments like, oh, we can't go overboard, we'll stifle innovation. The fact is, as Paul Volcker has pointed out, this innovation was not innovation that was positive. Only the bankers did well. Not even their shareholders and bondholders did well. But the economy did disastrously. The taxpayers have lost. The workers have lost. Homeowners have lost. So this innovation is not been beneficial. So this conjunction of ideology, wrongly framed ideas, and interest are stopping now the regulatory reforms that are needed. And finally, you asked the question, well, what's behind all this? It's obviously campaign contributions, 5 lobbyists for every congressman. And unfortunately, in the Citizens United case before the Supreme Court, things have gotten worse. The Supreme Court basically allowed them to unleash the amount of spending to try, we always had the best government the money could buy, and now the price has just gone up. And the likelihood of our political process being distorted has gotten worse.
The latest news in the New York Times about the crisis in Europe, and particularly in Greece, reporting that Wall Street tactics that were akin to what caused the subprime mortgage disaster are being used to enable governments to hide their mounting debts. And what they were talking about was the deal created by Goldman Sachs that helped Greece obscure billions in debt from the budget overseers in Brussels. What did Goldman do, and what do you think of this?
Well, our banks were very creative in their accounting. They first used this creative accounting to avoid paying taxes, but then they discovered that you could use the same kind of creative, more accurately called deceptive accounting, to deceive investors, move things off balance sheet, hide what was going on, and do very well by yourself, even if in the long run other people are going to pick up the tab. In the case of the banks, it was the American taxpayers who picked up a lot of the tab, but also, of course, the shareholders and the bondholders. They then started marketing this kind of deception all over the world. And there are ways that you can move things off balance sheet so that the costs that you're going to have to pay years into the future are not apparent. You see revenues coming in,